afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is the National Intel Report. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller. It is, it's September 1st, 2009, going into the third quarter of this year. And if you tuned in us to today, well, we've got the special broadcast we always do on Tuesdays, and that's with Bob Chapman and Robbie Noel. They're waiting in the wings, and we'll get to them in just a couple of minutes. Just wanted to remind folks, if you go to the republicbroadcasting.org and click on the Republic, and let me make sure that I get this correct, because after all, new stuff, and well, like anybody else, until I get into the thing of saying, hey, folks, this is where you need to go. Well, go up to republicbroadcasting.org. And it's very simple. You just click on the Republic. It's right at the top right hand of the page here. Well, it disappeared. I don't have it. Isn't that where it's supposed to be? Hey, yeah. Isn't that amazing? What did you do, Chris? At any rate, Republic, what is it? JacksonSilver.com, RepublicTradingGroup.net. I don't know what the heck happened to the icon up there. That, what? Yeah. But why, if you put pictures up, does it take anything off of here? Okay. All right, we'll get that little problem straightened around. At any rate, it could be, I think this thing is double feeding because I'm seeing dual images on my screen again. If I've got one opened up, it won't. Well, and all of this means nothing to you fine folks out there. At any rate, yours works? Well, hey, that's important, as long as yours and everybody else's works. It's up there. At any rate, the new Andy Jackson coin. By eternal God, I will rout them out. It's mirrored finish. It is beautiful. Beautiful. At any rate, Bob Chapman, Robbie Noel. I'm your host, John Stadtmiller. We'll get this thing rolling. I promise you a lot of information today, folks. Stay tuned.
Get ready for Real Talk Radio. You're listening to the National Intel Report with your host, John Stadtmiller.
I think the best way to kick this one off of the Russian, RT.com, the guy that wrote The Crash of America, he's the diplomatic from the Diplomatic Academy of Foreign Affairs, and I think this guy's name is Igor Panarin. This is what he had to say. Bombastic 45 seconds worth.
And who vowed to bring change to America will bring an end to the U.S. Professor Igor Panarin, who's the author of the book The Crash of America, says President Obama will lead his country to a breakup, just like Mikhail Gorbachev did.
Obama is the president of hope, but in a year there won't be any hope. He's practically another Gorbachev. He likes to talk, but hasn't really managed to do anything. Gorbachev had at least been a secretary of a regional Communist Party administration, whereas Obama was just a social worker. His mentality is totally different. He's a nice person and talks nicely, but he's not a leader and will take America to a crash. When Americans understand that, it will be like a bomb explosion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Robert Chapman of the International...
I second that.
I'm telling you. Why is it that we can only get this off of a foreign...
Pravda or Novosti or, In fact, they both of them asked to interview me on television, and I said no. I said only on radio. So they got mad, and they didn't call me back, didn't email me back.
Well, why don't you do a video conference via Skype?
Nah.
Nah?
I got too much to do now. I'm committed to the people who I'm responsible to, and this is one of them.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Mr. Robbie Noel.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sir.
How's it going?
I don't know. You got a hurricane heading your way. You going to get any rain?
Please, God.
Oh, gosh.
He loves the desert after it rains.
It's, yeah. Well, when it does, but don't hold your breath because you just might dry up and blow away. There is something that is in the works here, and this is kind of disturbing. And again, let's go back to RT, straight out of Moscow, on the issue of the Federal Reserve and the Bob about the audit of the Fed Reserve. And this is very telling. And again, nothing on American television, but take it away, Moscow. This is amazing stuff.
Now, crossing stateside, a landmark ruling in the U.S. means the Federal Reserve must reveal which firms it's given emergency loans to. It'll be the first time America's money machine is forced to be transparent when it comes to splashing the cash. Well, for more, let's go live to RT's Eliona Minkowski. He's in Washington for us. Eliona, over to you.
Thank you. Well, this isn't the only Freedom of Information Act lawsuit that was filed against the Federal Reserve, but it's the first one that finally worked. And now they're going to have to say just who they gave that emergency money to and exactly how much they got, which is making the banks very scared. They're worried that the American people, who essentially became involuntary investors in the banks because of the bailouts, are going to take all their money out of the accounts and run if they think that those banks are in trouble. Now, some people say that maybe this is exactly what they deserve. But also, could this cause a panic that isn't going to do any good for an already suffering economy? Well, here to discuss with me just what this case might mean is legal analyst Nicole Cardell. Nicole, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Elena.
So I first just want to know, why did this case finally work? The other ones that were filed did not get passed, and here they won.
Well, the federal judge in this particular case didn't buy the Fed's argument that this information would be exempted from public disclosure. The Fed had argued that this was information that was privileged information of the borrowers that were borrowing money from the banks and would lead them to a competitive disadvantage if it were disclosed. The judge said that the documents that were at issue were actually created by the Fed and didn't buy the argument that this would lead to a competitive disadvantage.
But can they still appeal this case? After all, the judge only gave them 5 days to disclose all the information, right?
I believe the way the federal law comes out on this one is that a party in a case has 10 days to request a stay of a particular judge's order. So they've got that timeline. I know that doesn't really work out with a 5-day order here, but that's what federal law is. And then they've got another 60 days or some to file notice of appeal at the next level of court, which is the Second Circuit. And I'd like to point out that it's a victory, but it's really only a small victory for the 75% of Americans that want disclosure of what's going on at the Federal Reserve, because if this case does get appealed, and I imagine it will, it could take months for the next court to make a decision on it. And if it gets appealed up to the Supreme Court, it could take years. And at that point, the information that the media outlet is requesting to disclose could become valueless.
Now, aside from the timing, are they supposed to disclose all of the information to who got every little bit of money?
Well, that's another reason why it's actually a small victory, because the judge's opinion was pretty narrow in scope. She focused on some information from a few reports that were prepared by the federal, or on behalf of the Federal Reserve Board from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. So it's not, and she actually didn't make a decision on whether or not Federal Reserve banks were agencies of the Federal Reserve Board, which is a pretty important point to hammer out.
But now, let's say that they do have to disclose all this information, and it does happen quickly. Do you think that there might be some kind of panic amongst people taking all their money out of their bank accounts?
Well, the judge had made a point on whether or not this could be problematic, and she said, look, this is part of the risk of market participation if you potentially look weak. I think it's pretty paternalistic of the Fed, Bernanke, and others who don't want to have this information disclosed to the public, because we're going to be bearing the brunt of the cost of what the Fed's doing in the long run.
Well, thanks, Nicole, and we will continue to follow this as we see whether the information is disclosed soon or whether they just might appeal and continue this long process. Back to you.
Now, do you think that they're going to try to tie this up in the courts?
Well, the operative word is paternalistic, and they are going to tie it up for 60 days. They're going to lose, and then they're going to go to the Supreme Court, which will take 2 to 3 years. But the upside to this is, number one, they look like a bunch of thieving goats, and number two, we get 1207 coming down like a freight train on these people. And, of course, it all depends on the form of 1207 once it gets passed. But if it gets passed in anything near its present form, all this information is going to come out on the audit and investigation of what they've done.
Well,
and what they're afraid of here, and this is what you got to listen to Barney Frank. He might be a lot of things, but he's not stupid. And Frank said, I want to put a stop to them lending money to non-banking entities. And that meant insurance companies, stock brokerage firms, and all manner of companies that we don't know about. We're talking about trillions of dollars here. If 1207 gets passed in any kind of a decent form, we're going to take them apart.